Hi everyone. I've got some tips and best practices about getting Cryptomattes and Puzzle Mattes into Davinci Resolve's color page. So let's jump in. Okay, I've got my rendered out multipass EXR in my media pool, and I've just put that onto my timeline. And I've cut it down to 1 frame because this is just a still, but all of this applies to animations as well. So what I've got here is a quick grade on this still image. And if I go back over to the Fusion page, you can see here, this is just my media in. This isn't the multi-pass split out into different AOVs and then recombined to form a beauty. This is just the straight up beauty pass from the EXR. The only thing I've done here is added a paint node. If I turn this off, just turn this off over here in the inspector, you can see I had some fireflies in here that I've just cloned out. Right, so first, I guess let's start with the puzzle mat. And one of the ways to do that is to split out our EXR into its multiple passes right here in Fusion. There's a nice script for that, which there's a link in the description if you don't already have this from Reactor. So Fusion. It's just a great thing to get some extra functionality out of Fusion, but the one I'm interested in is the splitter. And in order to use that, though, we have to use a loader. So I'm going to do Shift space and type in loader and drop in a loader. And I'm going to select my multi-pass EXR and hit open. Now I had the paint selected, so it automatically added a merge node, but I'm going to delete that. I don't want that. Just want this to be freestanding. So what I'm going to do is just right click on this and go to script and HOS split EXR Ultra. And I'm going to just do run and close and zoom out a little bit here. So this pulled all of our multi-pass AOVs out into nodes. And down here, we'll pull the puzzle mat over. All right, so if I hit 1 on the keyboard and change the view mode here to dual panes, hide the media pool for more room. So you can see our puzzle mat here. Let me just turn off the view transform. So now we can see our pure linear images. And so now the puzzle mat looks correct with this. We're getting some extra gamma adjustment there we don't want. So we just turn that off. Now this is our linear image. So one of the things we can do is with the puzzle mat selected, do Shift spacebar and type in media out. And we'll just drop down another media out node. And of course, you can use the puzzle mat here inside of Fusion to do any adjustments, but I think the better method is to do that over on the color page. We have a lot more control over here. So because I have this as a media out, I can, on the color page, go over and right click here and do add source. And if I do Alt S and then hold down E and remove this from the chain, I can plug this new media out. And we can just preview that here. And you can see we have the output from Fusion here on the color page. But if you'll notice, this looks incorrect. And what's happening here is that I have color management set up here in my project settings. I can open those up real quickly, just show you. In this case, I am using ACES CCT color science. And these are my settings. And you'll notice here my ACES output transform is ACES CCT. So we're working in ACES CCT, and I'm saying output ACES CCT, and we'll handle the output transform to our final output with a node. So I'm doing ACES to sRGB here with an ACES transform node in the color page. There are multiple ways to do this, and if you are wondering about this, I do have another tutorial that's all about setting up color management inside of Resolve for processing EXR renders. So go ahead and check that out. In this case, though, I'm just going to close that and adjust this so that it's no longer in a log gamma, but linear gamma. What we can do is just grab an ACES transform and pull it out here and just take this from ACES CCT and change it to ACES CG. And now we get our regular looking puzzle mat out of this. So in order to use this, what we need to do is kind of turn this into a Luma mat. So we just want the red channel alone, or the green channel alone, or the blue channel alone. And inside the color page, if we just click outside of the node, we can go add node splitter. And I can show you real quick. We're going to put this before the ACES transform. And if I plug these into the output, we can get the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel separated out. If we take the ACES transform, if we do this after the ACES transform and try to utilize this, for some reason, the nodes don't like the output directly from a splitter. So I can show you what I mean. If I hit Alt-S here, and we'll say, I want to use as a correction for these chairs. So I'm going to take the red channel and try to plug it into the blue matte connector on the node. It doesn't work. So just hold down E, pull that out, and put this splitter before the ACES transform. Now we've got just the red channel being transformed into linear gamma, and now we can take the output of the ACES transform and plug it into the matte of this new node. So now, let me make some room here. Right, so now if I just change the gamma here, you can see I'm adjusting the chairs by themselves. Just reset that. For instance, if I wanted to change the hue, I could just drag all of this down or up and slightly adjust the hue of the chairs. One thing to note here on the puzzle mat, if I go back here and solo this, better yet, let's do it from the ACES transform so you can see the actual mat. So I had reflect and refract IDs selected in the AOV manager of Redshift when I exported this. So we get the object ID of the chair, and we also get the reflection of that object in the floor with that box checked. And that's nice, but if we were going to do extreme color correction on this, we're really limited because, as you can see here in my waveform, the reflection is about 128 on this scale, where this, we're maxing out at over 1,000, right? So this is really only like 10% of the value of this white where the chair is. So any adjustment we're making to this, we'll be making only 10% of it in the reflection. And if I push this to the extreme here, you can see the reflection is not blue. You know, we're only, let's see, if I turn this off and on, you can probably barely see the adjustment in the reflection. So it's great to have the reflection in the IDs, but really if you wanted to do extreme adjustments, there's a lot more work that would have to be done in order to manage the entire scene with GI, caustics, reflections, things like that. So you probably want to be doing these large adjustments on the AOVs in the Fusion tab if you're rebuilding your beauty paths. Right, so another option we have, I'm just gonna go and hit Alt-S, make a new node. And this is really nice because built into the color tab, we have the option to right click on this node and go down to add matte. And we have the EXR that's being used as a source. And we can select the different passes here as a matte. So we can use the puzzle mat right here inside of the color tab. So we don't need to do this media out from Fusion for the puzzle mat. We can utilize the matte here in the color tab. And what it's connected to now, this is the luminance of the puzzle mat. And then we have the red channel, green, blue, and the full RGB output. And as you can tell here, this is already in the correct linear gamma, no extra ACES transform step. So really this is my preferred method anyway, to utilize puzzle mats inside of the color page. So for instance here, let's do the blue channel, and I'm just gonna grab this one here and plug it into the mat of this node. So now any corrections I'm doing on this node will only take place on the wall. So I can hit the highlight button up here just to take a look at our mask from our mat, and just turn that off. and connect our final node again so we can see what we're working on. And for instance here, if I wanted to take the contrast down some and maybe the gamma up a little bit, and kind of get more light into the shadows, make the wall a little bit brighter. And here's before, here's after. So Cryptomattes, a little bit different. We don't have the option to select the matte here because Cryptomattes require their own EXR. So in order to access that, let's head back over into the Fusion tab. And as you can see here, there is no Cryptomatte. And that's because that was rendered out as a direct AOV as a separate EXR. So I'm going to do another loader. I'm going to do shift space and do loader. And I'm going to select the Cryptomatte EXR that was output right next to the beauty and multipass EXR. So I'm going to open that up. And if I hit 1 on the keyboard, kind of see something here. And what we'll need to do from here is shift spacebar again and type in Cryptomatte. There it is. Because we need the plugin in order to read the data on this EXR. So what we get here is this little crosshair. And for instance, let's say I wanted to edit these two tables. So once the crosshairs are over one of these objects, I can hit add. And it'll take a second here and it should highlight that object. There we go. And I'm just going to move it and to the other table and hit add. Now that I have both of these objects selected, I'm going to change the view mode from colors to matte. Right, so now we have our Luma matte for our tables. So we can do the same thing. We can add another media out node and go back to the color page and add source. And we'll just need to drop down another node. Hit Alt-S. I'm going to hold down E to remove that from the chain and plug this third little output into it. And if I just kind of solo this, direct to output, you can see we get a similar Luma matte as we did with the Puzzle Matte. This is in ACES CCT. So we can copy this, add a new node right after this, and hit Command V. We're going from ACES CCT to ACES CG. Let's take a look at this here. So one thing you'll notice here is this doesn't quite look correct. And if we go back into Fusion and take a look at this, down here where it shows our red, green, and blue channels, you can see here our alpha is 0 and our alpha is 1. So we're utilizing an alpha channel on this along with the color. So I don't really want that. We don't need the alpha and Luma matte. There's probably another way to do this, but even in here, if I try to go to the format channels, we have the alpha as the Cryptomatte alpha. If I set that to none, we still have an alpha channel here, and I think that's just from the way this plugin works. So I'm just going to undo that. And instead, easily with the interior EXR, with the Cryptomatte EXR selected, I'm just going to make a background. And I just want to make sure that the Cryptomatte is going into the foreground, and this background layer, which is just black. And go back to color. We can see it's the same size, which is important. And we're just going to plug that into the background. Oops. We want to merge the Cryptomatte with the background and plug that into the media out. And now if we take a look here, we have an alpha of 1 throughout the whole image. Go back to our color page. This is now correct. Doesn't look all washed out. There might be another way to handle that alpha, but it's quick enough for me. So now we do kind of the same thing here. We can add another node, right? And plug this into the mat for this node. Go to the highlight and make sure, and yes, we are just creating a mask for our two tables. We'll turn that mode off. And so now if I want to make an adjustment here, temperature maybe, make these cooler, more apparent, just drag the offset. Now I'm only affecting these tables. Now obviously that's way too far. We can take this down, just fade the key output down. So one thing you notice here, this method is pretty slow. Updates are taking a while to come through, and we're not really getting real-time feedback with this method. And depending on the complexity of your scene and how many mats you want to do, you need to add sources for each of your masks for each of these Cryptomattes. So just basically copy them, paste them, come back. So let's reset this. And let's say one of the, I don't know, so maybe all of these pictures as a mat. Now view mode from color to matte. With the merge selected, I can do shift space, media out. And now we have another matte to use for specific color corrections. So same deal, add source, add a node, hold down E, pull it out, and connect it here. And just to check it, there we go. And we would need to do another ACES transform and then plug it into a new node. The problem with that, the speed, you take a huge hit here in speed. Processing Cryptomattes is very heavy. So instead, what I think is a better option is going back to Fusion. And instead of a media out here, I'm just going to, with the merge selected with our background, I'm going to hit shift space and select a saver. And what I'm going to do is just put this in the same folder as my EXR, and I'm just going to call this Photo Frames Matte. Now I can leave this as an EXR, that's fine, and there are probably some scenarios where you would want to do that. For instance, if you had something that was like extremely out of focus, or there was some other information there you needed to keep in this matte, but for this case, it's just a black and white standard dynamic range matte. So I'm just going to save this as a JPEG and hit save. And now I'm going to go back to my media pool and come down here to that same folder and select this saver again, forgot, go back up to Fusion and then do render all savers. There we go. Now we go back to the media pool and we have this here. So this is great. What we can do though, now once we have this selected, we can right click this. Instead of just dragging it into our media pool, we can right click on this and say add to media pool as matte. Now in our color tab, let's go ahead and make a new node. Let's make some room here. Go back down to add matte, and now we have timeline mattes. And now we have our photo frames. And if we click on our highlight mode here, you can see we've got all of our photo frames selected. I'll just plug in the final node just to get all of our corrections back. And now on this node, do corrections that just influence these picture frames. So you can see here, this is kind of chugging a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and remove these. And now corrections here are happening in real time. So this is just a much faster way to work rather than sending everything through Fusion. I'd say if you can, I would just use the saver from Fusion and export these out as mats, bring them in as timeline mat, and that is much quicker. Because, you know, a complicated project with lots of Cryptomattes, this is going to slow way down. But the option is there if you need it. And you can run multiple savers out of this. You know, you can redo this and, redo the, go back and select another color ID, another object. Just redo that. And sending this back to mat. And even with the same saver, just change this to plant and render all savers. And we have the other one. Same deal. Add to media pool as mat. And this way, take a look here. This already comes in with the correct gamma, so that saves a step as well. And I'll just put this back in. And same deal. We have access to that object. All right, so that wraps this one up. If there are any questions about this, just leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. And again, thanks everybody for watching and tuning in. There'll be more soon. Thanks so much.